their own mother languages. Interpretation is available in English, Burmese, Thai, Tagalog, and Bahasa Indonesia. For Bahasa Indonesia, please go to Japanese channel. Please mute your microphone if you are not speaking. And please raise your hand or use the raise hand function on Zoom if you wish to ask question or give a comment. For our opening message, she is an Indonesian domestic migrant worker here in Hong Kong and was one of the founding leaders of the Association of Indonesian Migrant Workers in Hong Kong, or ATKI. She is now the chairperson of the International Migrants Alliance, the first ever global alliance of grassroots migrants, refugees, and displaced people. Friends, may we call on Annie Listari, chairperson of the International Migrants Alliance.
Thank you, Rhea. Good evening, my fellow migrants and supporter of migrants. On behalf of International Migrants Alliance, or IMA, and Asia Pacific Forum on Women, Law and Development, or APWLD, I would like to welcome each one of you in today's webinar. Our stories sharing of women migrant struggle in Asia during the COVID-19 pandemic. This activity is organized to commemorate the International Women's Day on March 8th and a warming up for International Labour Day on May 1. Why do we organize this webinar on the situation and struggle of women migrant workers in Asia? Today, the number of migrants in the world has reached 260 million. 40% or 104 million are in the Asia Pacific, and they predominantly work in semi and low-skilled informal sectors. Half of the migrants in Asia Pacific, or over 15 million, are women, and they mainly work as a domestic workers in tourism and hospitality, healthcare, garment, plantation, entertainment, and other professions. Many of them are also married migrants. Most of the time, the job that they work do not match to their skill because of the lack of recognition to their actual qualification. Despite our significant number and contribution to the economic development and society in our home countries and even in the host countries, the working and living condition of women migrant workers are far from decent. Our own government targeted women migrants to be exported abroad as commodities in exchange of remittances and reduction of unemployment. The government also colludes with the private agencies to extort high fees from us, but neglecting our welfare and rights. On the other hand, the host government, where we are working now, impose very high control and oppressive immigration regime over our living and working condition, mobility, and freedom. Many of us are excluded from social services and legal protection, such as labor law, minimum wage legislation, working hours regulation, and most of us are forced to live in with our employers, which automatically make us to work for 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Women migrants suffer gross human rights violation from working very long hours to sexual abuses to human trafficking and even death. International Organization of Migration, or IOM, estimates that 62% of people living in the situation of modern slavery are in the Asia Pacific, working in the sectors such as sex industry, agriculture, construction, fishing, and hospitality. Sisters and brothers in struggle, despite our limitation because of our immigration status, as you know, many of us are actually undocumented, and also because of the restriction to join union or even form association, because of the language and other reasons, but we must be proud of ourselves because women migrant workers in the Asia and the Pacific have many decades of experience in self-organizing and mobilizing to change our condition. We organize because we believe this is the only way to assist each other in order to respond to the harsh living condition, confront exploitation of agencies, and also unjust regulation of government. We organize because we know that no one can change our plight, our condition, except ourselves through our empowerment and our unity in action. This is the reason why International Migrants Alliance believes that the stories and struggle of women migrants in the Asia Pacific must be promoted widely. Our realities must be known and acknowledged by government and societies. Our unity and cooperation must be fostered among migrants groups and advocates in the region in order to better protect migrants' rights. IMA also aims to promote the voices and self-representation of grassroots migrants in any decision-making at national level, regional level, and international level. Can we do it? Yes, we believe that we can. Today, the webinar is the beginning to gather women migrants group and advocates in the region to share, discuss, and learn from each other migrant issue, struggle, and aspiration, particularly during the COVID-19 pandemic. IMA hopes that through the sharing, we can develop cooperation, collaboration, and even joint advocacy with the goal of strengthening our grassroots migrant movement in the Asia Pacific. Thank you.
Thank you, Annie Listari, Chairperson of International Migrants Alliance, for your message that give us a glimpse of the condition of migrants, especially women migrants in Asia Pacific. And now we are going to start our sharing proper. We have our speakers from Myanmar, Thailand, South Korea, and Taiwan, and they will have to answer this question. Each of them is given 20 minutes. What do a Burmese migrant in Thailand, a Filipino factory worker in South Korea, an Indonesian caregiver in Taiwan, and a Thai domestic worker in Hong Kong have in common? They have stories of challenges, of struggle, of solidarity. Now we begin our sharing from four of our sisters who will tell us the challenges women migrants in their respective countries and communities have faced and how they collectively addressed these problems and challenges. We will start with Kwan Mai from MAP Foundation. Let us begin with Kwan Mai or Mai Mai. Mai Mai is a Burmese woman, a woman migrant in Thailand who started working at the Women's Exchange Program in MAP Foundation since 2009. She helps in raising awareness on women's rights, family planning, gender, and domestic violence. She has also helped organize training of trainers for women leaders.
Because I
contributed
have
to building women networks in
I have
Myanmar.
to let her read many times before we did the spelling.
And Thailand. She also loves gardening. Friends, let us welcome Mai Mai, and she will speak in Burmese.
Hello everyone, I'm Mai from MAP Foundation from Thailand. So I will present in Burmese my co-worker Ying Hom will interpret in English. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you clearly, Mai Mai.
Okay. So now I will answer the first question in Burmese. 2020ပေါ့နော်2020 March လကနေစတင်ပြီးတော့မှ ကျမတို့ရွှေ့ပြောင်းထိုင်းနိုင်ငံထဲမှာရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားတွေရဲ့တက်တန်းကုန်ဆုံးသွားတယ်သူတို့တက်တန်းနဲ့အတစ်ပြန်တိုးရမယ့်အချိန်ရောက်လာတယ်ပေါ့နော်ဆိုတော့ရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားတွေက2020 March လ
My mic, please unmute. Sorry.
哦
唔係幾時話可以食飯可以睇
Okay, I will start it again.
邊個話食飯嘅時候可以睇 iPad 㗎？
Hello. Can you hear
Yes,
me?
we can hear you.
Okay. ဆိုတော့2020ခုနှစ် March လနေစပြီးတော့မှအလုပ်သမားတွေကို
我要激嬲我。
ထိုင်းနိုင်ငံထဲမှာအလုပ်သမားတက်တန်းအစ်စတင်တိုးပေးဖို့သူတို့လှုပ်ဆောင်ပေးတယ်တက်တန်းကုန်တဲ့လူတွေကလည်းတက်တန်းပြန်ပြီးတော့မှတိုးရတယ်ဆိုတော့အလုပ်သမားလက်မှတ်တွေတက်တန်းတိုးရတာနဲ့စပြီးတော့မှအလုပ်သမားတွေကငွေကုန်ကြေးကျများတယ်တတိအစ်ရှာရတယ်စိတ်ဖိစီးမှုတွေများတယ်အဲ့ဒါနဲ့တစ်ဆက်တည်းမှာပဲကိုဗစ်ပြဿနာကိုဝင်လာခဲ့တဲ့အခါမှာဒီရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေအတွက်ပို့ပြီးတော့မှအခက်အခဲရှိသွားတယ်စက်ရုံအလုပ်ရုံတွေကအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေအလုပ်ဖြုတ်လိုက်တဲ့အခါမှာအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေကိုအရင်အလုပ်ဖြုတ်လိုက်တယ်ပေါ့နော်
Yep. Since 2020 in March, most of our migrant worker in Thailand is the time or the periods that their legal document, temporary passport or work permit is going to expire. So they have to arrange for the money and they have to find a new employer and they already in a lot of pressure. In the same time, after March 2020, there caused a COVID situation, and women migrants are the first group that face the challenge and problem because in the factory they are the first one who will become jobless and fired by the employer.
ဆိုတော့အလုပ်သမားရဲ့ဥပဒေထဲမှာလည်းအလုပ်ရှင်တွေကိုချက်ချင်းရှာရတယ်။ချက်ချင်းကြတော့လည်းအလုပ်ရှင်ရှာလို့မရတဲ့အပြင်ပေါ့နော်။အလုပ်ကလည်းရှာလို့မရဘူး။ဝင်ငွေကလည်းမရှိဘူး။ဆိုတော့အမျိုးသမီးတွေဝင်ငွေမရှိလာတာနဲ့အမျှဒီအိမ်တွင်းအကြမ်းဖက်မှုတွေလည်းရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေကအများကြီးဒီကာလအတွင်းမှာကြုံတွေ့ရတယ်။
So during COVID-19 situation, most of the migrant workers who are women become jobless. Meanwhile, they also have to find a new employer and arrange to extend their legal document, and they don't have enough income, and this is the cause that raise a lot of domestic violence problem.
အမျိုးသမီးကိုယ်တိုင်ပဲသူတို့အကြမ်းဖက်မှုခံရတာတွေမကဘူးသူတို့ရဲ့သားသမီးတွေရောပြီးတော့မှသူတို့နဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေကိုမိခိုရတဲ့သူတို့မိဘတွေရောစိတ်ပိုင်းဆိုင်ရာအကြမ်းဖက်မှုတွေခံရတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါအပြင်ကလေးအမျိုးသမီးငယ်တွေကမဒိန်းကျင့်မှုတွေကိုလည်းခံရတယ်ပို့ပြီးတော့မှများလာတာကိုကျမတို့မြင်ရတယ်ပေါ့
So during COVID-19 situation, most of the women stay at home and they also face a lot of domestic violence, including their children and the follower like their parents who are elderly and cannot go to work anymore. And during COVID-19 situation, the schools are closed. So the young women or the youth are also was raped by the stepfather. And the neighboring.
နောက်တစ်ခုကတော့ဟိုပါပေါ့နော်မလိုလားအတဲ့ကိုဝန်ဆောင်တာတွေအဲ့လိုတွေလည်းဒီကာလထဲမှာတွေ့လာတယ်အမျိုးသမီးတွေကကိုဝန်မလိုချင်တဲ့အခါမှာသူတို့ကဟိုပါပေါ့နော်လုံခြုံမှုမရှိတဲ့တတိသားဖြတ်ချတာတွေအဲ့ဒါတွေလည်းမြင့်တက်လာတာမြင်ရတယ်
And also unwanted pregnant and unsafe abortion are also increased.
နောက်ပြီးတော့မှအလုတ်ပြုတ်သွားတဲ့အခါမှာအလုတ်အသစ်တွေပြန်ရှာတယ်နောက်ပြီးတော့မှတထေးအသစ်တွေပြန်ရှာတယ်ဒီကြားထဲမှာပွဲစားခတွေကုန်တယ်အဲ့လိုပေါ့နော်ဆမ်ရှိတဲ့အခါမှာချင်းငားရတယ်အတိုးတွေအများကြီးပေးရတယ်အဲ့ဒီရဲ့စိန်ခေါ်မှုတွေလည်းသူတို့ခံရတယ်
Meanwhile, when the women migrants are jobless, they have to find a new job. They have to find a new employer through the broker and they have to pay for the broker fee, and they have a lot of debt because they have to borrow the money.
ဒါတော့ကျမတို့ ਨੇ ဟောပါနော်ကြုံတွေ့စံရတဲ့အတိုင်းဝိုင်းကရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေရဲ့စိန်ခေါ်မှုတွေပေါ့
This is the most of the women migrant facing during COVID-19 situation.
ဒီဒုတိယဟာပါတခါလေးဆက်ပြော
Do we have to speak the
The
second
second question
question right now?
Yes, please.
တစ်ဆက်ထဲလားဆိုတော့နောက်စိန်ခေါ်မှုတစ်ခုထဲမှာပေါ့နော်ဒါတော့စိန်ခေါ်မှုတစ်ခုထဲမှာပြီးတော့မှအိမ်တွင်းအကြမ်းဒီကာလမှာအိမ်တွင်းအကြမ်းဖက်မှုခံရတဲ့ရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေကကျမတို့ထိုင်းအစိုးရတွေရဲ့ဒီလုံခြုံရေးကေဟာမှာပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒီမှာလဲကျမတို့ကဝင်ခွင့်ရမရှိပြန်ဘူးဆိုတော့ရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေအတွက်ခိတ္တသွားရောက်ပြီးတော့မှခုနာမဲ့နေရာလဲကျမတို့လိုက်ရှာပေးရတာလဲစိန်ခေါ်မှုတစ်ခုဖြစ်တယ်ပေါ့
Another challenge for us when women migrant are facing domestic violence. As a migrant woman in Thailand, we are not able to access to safe house, which the Thai government have.
ဆိုတော့အဲ့ဒါတွေကိုကျမတို့ဘယ်လိုဖြေရှင်းပေးရလဲဆိုတာဆက်ပြီးတော့မှတစ်ခုချင်းစီပြန်ပြောမှာပေါ့နော်
And yeah, we are going to explain more how they address some of the challenge.
ဆိုတော့အဲ့ဒီစိန်ခေါ်မှုတွေကြောင့်ပဲအခုဆိုရင်ကျမတို့ဒီမရှိမဖြစ်ရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေအတွက်တအားလဲခက်ခဲတယ်မရှိမဖြစ်ကျမတို့ဒီချွန်ပူရီမှာအမျိုးသမီးဟောပါနော်အလုပ်သမားစင်တာအမျိုးသမီးကနေဦးဆောင်ပြီးတော့မှမဖြစ်မနေသူတို့ဖွင့်လိုက်ရတယ်ဒီစိန်ခေါ်မှုတွေကြောင့်ကျမတို့ရလာတဲ့ရလတ်ပေါ့နော်နောက်တစ်ခုကခူရာပူရီမှာဆိုရင်လည်းအမျိုးသမီးတွေရဲ့ခဏလေးဟောပေါ့လာပြီးတော့မှအပန်းဖြေတဲ့နေရာလေးစင်တာလေးနှစ်ခုကိုအမျိုးသမီးတွေကစူးစမ်းပြီးတော့မှဖွင့်နိုင်ခဲ့တယ်ပေါ့
So I mean, the women worker group in Chonburi, they come together and they collect 200 baht by each for every month, and they can open the safe house or a kind of shelter for the migrant women who facing the domestic violence. And also in Korapuri, women group could gather together and create a space for the women for their temporary place so that they could take shelter there.
ဆိုတော့ကိုဗစ်ရဲ့အစပိုင်းတုန်းကတော့ကျမတို့ Met Foundation ကနေပြီးတော့မှလဲစူးစမ်းပြီးတော့မှလုံးဝအလုပ်လက်မဲ့ဖြစ်သွားတဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေလုံးအခက်အခဲရှိသွားတဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေအတွက်ဆိုရင်ကျမတို့ဒီစားတောက်ကုန်တွေပေါ့နော်ဒေတာအသီးသီးကအမျိုးသမီးကျမတို့အမျိုးသမီးဆွေးနွေးပွဲရဲ့ဒေတာထဲမှာရှိတဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေကိုကျမတို့ဆန်နေစီတွေဒီလိုကုန်ချုပ်လေးတွေကျမတို့အလှူရှင်တွေရှာပြီးတော့မှဒေတာ18ခုအဲ့ဒီမှာကျမတို့ဖြန့်ဝေပေးနိုင်တယ်ပေါ့နော်
And on behalf of MAP, we also could assist and distribute rice and dry food to exchange area that we organize our activity in.
ဆိုတော့အများနဲ့လည်းအဲ့လိုမရှာပေးနိုင်တဲ့အတွက်ပေါ့နော်ကာလကလည်းရှည်လာတဲ့အတွက်ကျမတို့ကဘာပြန်လုပ်ရလဲဆိုတော့သူတို့ဟာသူတို့အချင်းချင်းပြန်လဲထောက်ပံ့ပေးတဲ့စနစ်တွေကိုကျမတို့သူတို့ပြန်ဖွဲ့စည်းပြီးမှပြန်လုပ်ခိုင်းတယ်ဆိုတော့လောလောဆယ်အလုပ်ရှိတဲ့လူကအလုပ်မရှိတဲ့လူခဏလေးပြန်ထောက်ပံ့ပြီးတော့မှဘယ်နေရာမှာအလုပ်ကတော့ဖြစ်အားနေလဲခဏလေးဘယ်မှာဝင်လုပ်နိုင်လဲအဲ့ဒီနေရာတွေမှာသူတို့ပြန်ရှာပြီးတော့မှအဲ့ဒီစနစ်ကိုသူတို့ပြန်လုပ်ဖို့လဲသူတို့စီစဉ်ပေးတယ်ပြန်ပြီးတော့မှလဲပညာပေးပြောပေးတယ်ပေါ့နော်
In the current situation as MAP, we cannot support the relief for a long time. So what we can do is we try to gather women together and form the peer assistance system. Like if someone have more money, they give more food to another friend that need more help, something like that.
ဒီအိမ်တွင်းအကြမ်းဖက်မှုနဲ့ဆိုင်တဲ့အကြောင်းအရာတွေဆိုရင်လည်းကျမတို့အဲ့ဒီသူတို့ data ထဲမှာရှိတဲ့ကွန်ရက်အဖွဲ့တွေကိုကျမတို့သူတို့ ਨੇ ချိတ်ဆက်ပေးတယ်ပြီးတော့မှအမျိုးသမီးဆွေးနွေးပွဲရဲ့ခေါင်းဆောင်တွေကလည်းသူတို့အချင်းချင်းပြန်ချိတ်ဆက်ပြီးတော့မှ data ထဲမှာရှိတဲ့အိမ်တွင်းအကြမ်းဖက်မှုတွေနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေကိုကူညီပေးနိုင်တယ်နှစ်သိမ့်ဆွေးနွေးအကြံပေးနိုင်တယ်ခိုလုံတဲ့နေရာခဏပုံးနိုင်တဲ့နေရာ အဲ့ဒီနေရာလေးတွေကိုအမျိုးသမီးခေါင်းဆောင်တွေကကျမတို့နဲ့ချိတ်ဆက်ပြီးတော့မှစီစဉ်ပေးနိုင်ခဲ့တယ်
And what we do more is we create a network in each area so that if there is domestic violence for women migrants, they could help to each other from women exchange activity like peer system, and they could give urgent need support and counseling and temporary shelter for the women.
ဆိုတော့စက်ယုံအလုပ်ယုံတွေမှာလုပ်နေတဲ့အလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေဆိုရင်တထေးရှာတာလေသူတို့ကအလုပ်ပြုတ်ပြီဆိုရင်တထေးအစ်စ်ပြန်ရှာတယ်တထေးအစ်စ်ရှာတယ်သူတို့ရက်အကန့်အသတ်ရှိတယ်15ရက်အတွင်းမှာရှာတာတွေအဲ့ဒီအခက်အခဲတွေသူတို့အများကြီးရှိနေတော့စက်ယုံအလုပ်ယုံတစ်ခုတစ်ခုပြောင်းဖို့ဆိုတာလည်းလွယ်ပြန်မှုเนาะခဏနေအလုပ်ပြောင်းလိုက်တယ်ပြန်အလုပ်ပြန်ဖွင့်လို့ပြန်သွားပြီးတော့မှအလုပ်တွေကိုပြန်သွားရှောက်တယ်အဲ့လိုအခက်အခဲရှိတဲ့အခါမှာတနေရာထဲမှာပဲလောလောဆယ်အလုပ်ပြုတ်လဲဆက်နေနိုင်လို့ရအောင်လဲသူတို့ကိုသွားတထင်းနဲ့သွားရောက်ညှိနှိုင်းဖို့လဲကျမတို့အဲ့လိုအကြံပေးခဲ့တယ်နောက်ဒီလိုကာလမှာပေါ့နော်ခြံအလုပ်သမားတွေကကြတော့သူတို့အလုပ်ပြုတ်သွားတယ်ဆိုပေမဲ့လည်းသူတို့ရဲ့တထေးအောက်မှာခြံဝင်းမှာပဲတထေးကနေပိုင်ခွင့်ပေးထားတယ်ပြီးတော့မှအဲ့ဒီတထေးနဲ့ပဲသူတို့အလုပ်ဆက်လုပ်ရတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့အလုပ်ကိုတော့တထေးကအလုပ်မရှိတဲ့အတွက်ဒီတထေးကသူတို့ကိုလာစားမပေးနိုင်ပေမဲ့လည်းတခြားမှာအလုပ်ထွက်ရှာတဲ့အခါမှာသူတို့အတွက်ဝင်ငွေနည်းနည်းပပရတယ်အလုပ်လစ်လက်တဲ့နေရာမှာတယောက်နဲ့တယောက်သူတို့ပြန်ပြီးတော့မှအလုပ်ပြန်ရှာပေးပြီးတော့ပေးတဲ့အစီအစဉ်လေးတွေလည်းသူတို့မှာချိတ်ဆက်ပြီးလုပ်နေကြပါတယ်လို့
For the factory worker, why they have to find a new employer, it means that in the law in Thailand, the policy is quite limited. They have to find maybe in 15 days. So it's not easy. And so that what they can do is they have to negotiate with the employer to have a permission to stay more around the factory. But for the agriculture side worker, the employee allow them to live in the garden, but they don't have a salary. And the migrant worker could able to help each other to find a job, a daily worker job outside, and they could raise some money and peer help assist them.
ဆိုတော့ဒီကာလထဲမှာကျမထင်တာတော့ကျမတို့နိုင်ငံအသီးသီးထဲမှာရှိတဲ့ရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေကမိခင်နိုင်ငံထဲမှာရှိတဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေထက်တော့အခက်အခဲတွေပိုပြီးတော့ကြုံရတယ်เนาะကြုံရမှာပေါ့เนาะစိန်ခေါ်မှုတွေလည်းကြုံရမယ်ဘာဖြစ်လို့လဲဆိုတော့သူများနိုင်ငံထဲမှာနေပြီးအလုပ်လုပ်တာကလုပ်ချင်ရတယ်အလုပ်သမားဗီဇာရှာရတယ်နောက်ပြီးတော့မှဒီကာလထဲမှာဆိုရင်တော့စိတ်ဖိစီးမှုတွေများတယ်ဆိုတော့ကျမတို့ဒီရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးဆွေးနွေးပွဲမှာဆိုရင်လည်းအမျိုးသမီးတွေကိုကျမတို့အားပေးတယ်စိတ်တက်မကြဖို့နောက်ဒီကာလရေရှည်ကာလဖြစ်တဲ့အတွက်ဖြည့်ရှင်းမဲ့နီးလန်းတွေကိုပဲကျမတို့သူတို့ကိုလည်းဘာလို့မနော်ဆွေးနွေးပွဲတွေမှာဆွေးနွေးခိုင်းစီတယ်ပေါ့
For the migrant women in Thailand, we facing more challenge and difficulty than in Myanmar because we have to stay in other country. We have to find an employer. We have to extend our legal document like passport and visa, and we have a lot of pressure. But what we can do is we encourage each other and raise awareness and help each other at the women exchange activity.
နောက်ပြီးတော့မှကျမတို့ဒီ campaign တွေပါတယ်ပေါ့နော်အဲ့ဒါဒီကြတော့ပြီးခဲ့တဲ့နိုဝင်ဘာလ2020နိုဝင်ဘာလတော့ဒီအမျိုးသမီးတွေအကြမ်းဖက်မှုအဲ့ဒီရဲ့ campaign တွေကိုကျမတို့ရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေတရားကျော်နဲ့ချင်းမှာကျမတို့လုပ်ပေးနိုင်ခဲ့တယ်နောက်ပြီးတော့မှဒီ2021ခုနှစ် March လထဲမှာဆိုရင်လည်း Met Foundation နေဦးစီးပြီးတော့မှဒီအပြည်ပြည်ဆိုင်ရာအမျိုးသမီးများနေ့နဲ့အနှစ်20ပြည့်အမျိုးသမီးနှီးနှောဖလှယ်ပွဲကိုကျမတို့ဒီရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမားအမျိုးသမီးတွေအတွက်ပြုလုပ်ပေးနိုင်ခဲ့တယ်ပေါ့အဲ့ဒီမှာလည်းကျမတို့ထုတ်ပြန်ဒီရွှေ့ပြောင်းအလုပ်သမီးအမျိုးသမီးတွေအနေနဲ့လည်းဒီထုတ်ပြန်ကြေညာစာတမ်းကိုကျမတို့ထုတ်ပေးနိုင်ခဲ့ပြီးတော့မှချင်းမိုင်မြို့မြို့ဝင်တွေကိုလည်းကျမတို့ပေးနိုင်ခဲ့တယ်ပေါ့
From MAP in 2020 November, we could organize the Stop Wow event for the over 100 migrant women to raise them awareness about the Stop Wow. And also in 2021 March, we could organize International Women's Day on behalf of 28 women exchange get together, and we could have a demand letter or statement and then we could give it to the Chiang Mai governor on International Women's Day.
Yes.
My.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Is that all? Because you only have a minute left for your sharing.
Can you say that again?
Can you say that again?
You only have a minute left for your sharing.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Comment đi bạn Janet.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm finished.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mai. M.
Yes.
Kwan Mai from MAP Foundation,
Migrant Assistance Program Foundation.
a Migrant Assistance Program Foundation. And
Yes.
thank you for the interpreter for interpreting. And yes, indeed, it's very sad to hear that COVID-19 has worsened the domestic violence and abuse among migrants in Thailand. And also it's good to hear that our migrant sisters in Thailand have come out or have found a way to help each other. And now next to our next speaker is Mike from Thai Regional Alliance, an Asian migrants coordinating body. Mike is a migrant domestic worker from North Thailand. She has been working in Hong Kong for 20 years and is currently the vice chairperson of Thai Regional Alliance, a member of the Asian Migrants Coordinating Body, to share with us the problems faced by women migrant domestic workers in Hong Kong and how they, in the Thai Regional Alliance and AMCB, address these problems. Let us welcome Mike. Mike will be speaking in English. Okay.
Okay, good evening, everyone. I am Swan behind of Asian Migrant Coordinating Body. As would like to present to represent of the death of migrant workers towards COVID-19. During the COVID-19 pandemic, we have the toxic issues confronting migrant workers. One, majorities suffer from consequence of physiological state due to longer working hours. It's 14 to 20 hours a day. Most workers works such cleaning, cooking, teen care, elderly care, orange work 20 hours under employer. Surveillance giving in the difference post improver sleeping or arrangements. Two, employers then is right to rest day and some even nothing have rest day for 3 to 7 months already. And these exclusions from financial assistance, and we are processed to spend the already small salary to buy our own mass sanitizer and food crossing MDWS to suffer from the finance constraints. 4. Stigmatizations and discrimination that migrants domestic worker as the virus carrying and the speeder the crossing MDW2 to be stigmatized inside the employer's house. In public and the target test by local authorities, police, labor, in immigration. 5. No compromise is necessary assistance from embassies, consulates to health, MDWS. 6. This an influence in the nation is against MDWS, and the migrants depended from the citizens, governments, and its migrant. However, to the government's respondent, the information on COVID-19 on the new police were released in the English and the international language. The Chinese, Malay, Arabic are not available in migrant domestic worker. Respective language conferences most migrants domestic worker are not awards on the documents and that the blameless in the immigration police labor for not following new the regulations. Host the government is a singles out migrant domestic worker. Workers by issuing statements and collecting migrant domestic worker to stay in the employee's house during rent day to avoid to the spread of COVID-19 and not to be infected expressed in migrant domestic worker. From another supplying funds and release of the other from the assistances and the fresh funds. Public government departments show and as a labor department and health department to inspect and this distribute prior in the place where MDW confiscate on the Sunday holiday. Mainly, the police officials to inspect the area of the migrant and the communication is like past and in the migrant domestic worker and even orange though we are close not to wear smart intermediate and this and the migrant domestic worker are the defenders who speaks about the contest condition. And organizing stating this dissemination of the information, release mass sanitizer and food, leakage assistance at both the healthy of the outright health and physiology and program. Sundays exercise, online cinema and training. What are the grassroots organizations where we have exercise at the follow? Work is the local NGO where space is grouped to the greater donations, mask, sanitizer and food, and this it distributes to MDW needs. So on the different is a violent confrontation is by MDW during the pandemic. Campaigns is a case cases show is online based on conferences, released in statement, released in the local and Hong Kong, researching to MDW and enjoy we swab test. The police is stopped and the team is made to distribute the information on the COVID-19 on new the regulation to MDW, the Tata Flyer, the Facebook on the from organizer, uh, regular is online, social installation and education for MDW. Organizations the regulars the legends with consulates in the process is on the assets in the problem for, of MDW is during from the pandemic. Work with local supporting to creators for doing donation from the mask and sanitizer and uh, education and then about the difficult faced by MDW organizes this release program. Sure, it's a actually that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike of Thai Regional Alliance, for sharing with us your story, the story of Thai migrants in Hong Kong. Unfortunately, we haven't seen the full presentation of Mike, so I'll just sum up briefly what Mike is sharing, because I am also from Hong Kong. Um, what I understand is that she is talking about the discrimination and social exclusion that the foreign domestic workers and migrants are facing here in Hong Kong. The beginning of COVID-19 pandemic in 2020, we were already we already feel the discrimination, especially when the police or the government has announced that we have to stay at home, and then most of the migrants here in Hong Kong were not able to go out during their day off, and when they gather in the places where they gather during their day off, they are displaced. And Mike is also she also talked about how they coped up. She talked about the leisure programs that they were doing, donation drives, public advisory drives, education, and somehow to help the fellow migrants here in Hong Kong. So thank you, Mike, for sharing with us your story, and we will hear more. And please, if you have questions, comments, or suggestions, please key in your questions in the chat box. And or if you are watching on Facebook right now, you can comment. You can comment in the comment section. And apologies. Each speaker is only given 10 minutes, so I said 20 minutes, but it's only 10 minutes. And okay, so we will move on. Our next speaker is from Bicol Federation. Uh, Her name is Jenny Oliver. Jenny Oliver is a Filipina migrant worker in South Korea and is one of the leaders of Bicol Federation. Uh, Jenny Oliver will speak in Tagalog. And please go to English channel for interpretation.
Okay. Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat.
Good evening, everyone.
Ako po si Jenny from Seoul, Korea.
I'm Jenny from Seoul, Korea,
Kasalukuyang chair ng Pagdiriwang Bicol noon.
and I'm currently the chairperson of
Ako po'y
Kulnon.
nagpapasalamat at naisama ako sa webinar para sa story
I'm
ng
grateful to be part of this webinar
dito sa
to
Korea.
share stories of OFWs from Korea.
Ang pandemic ay nagsimula noong mid-February 2020.
The pandemic started on February mid-2020.
Tegu, pero ang kainaman, mabilis na tumugon ang gobyerno para maresolbahan agad ang papalaking infeksyon ng pandemiko.
The Korean government responded
Sinara ang
quickly.
mga simbahan,
They closed
mga
churches,
eskwelahan, sports
schools,
centers, At
sports
nandun din
centers,
ang mga karamihan sa mga factory.
and
At
they even close
siyempre
most of
kami isa sa
factories.
nawala ng trabaho
And we are one among those who
sa
lose
panahon na
their
yan.
jobs on those periods.
Ay, nawala. Ba't nawala sila? Ah, marami kaming mga problema ang kinaharap gaya ng kawalan siyempre ng trabaho,
We have faced various problems like
mga
uh,
gastusin, mga
unemployment,
problema
uh,
kami sa mga araw-araw naming
financial
gastusin gaya
problems,
ng pagbabayad ng bahay,
our daily expenses like
kuryente,
rent,
tubig,
electricity,
pagkain, siyempre
water, food, of course,
pangunahin
in the
pagkain,
main food.
ang hindi namin alam kung paano siyempre magpapadala, kailangan namin padala ng pera sa
We
Pilipinas
don't
para
know
din naman
how,
matugunan yung mga
what,
pangangailangan
where
sa
to
amin
find
ngayon.
money to be able to remit to our family in the Philippines.
Um, naging mahirap nga, naging nawalan nga kami ng trabaho, kaya kahit kung saan yung may
It's
bakante
been
araw-araw,
very
tinatulungan
challenging
namin.
and
Meron
difficult.
din kami
So
mga ginagawang paraan, gaya ng pagluluto ng mga
we
kakadibang
tried to find
kakanin
ways
ng
like cooking
Philippine food
or making
para para
traditional Filipino
makagusto sa
food,
mga ibang
rice
gastusin.
cakes, to be able to meet both
At
ends
yun ay binebenta
and to
namin sa
survive
mga
this
kapwa
pandemic.
namin Pilipino dito.
And we sell this Filipino food to our fellow
Kasama
Filipinos.
na rin sa mga naging problema namin ang naging pagbubuli ng mga Korean sa mga migrante. Lalo-lalo na sa mga galing ng China.
Among the various problems that
Siyempre
we faced
nakakatakot,
was the
nakakatakot din naman
bullying,
paano
intimidation
gagawin din nila sa
of
amin
Koreans
ngayon.
to us Filipino migrant workers here in Korea.
Nakikipag dahil sa mga kaibigan namin mga Koreans, medyo
Because of
hindi
our
pinangamba namin na
allies and friends,
na
the
kami din ay
Korean allies and
nandun
friends,
dahil sa
uh,
suporta na rin ng mga Koreans.
our fear was lessened because of their
Sa
support.
kalusugan naman po, nakakatakot din na magkasakit ka ng infection.
With regards to health, we are very scared on the possibility of
Wala
getting
naman kaming insurance
infected
dito.
of COVID
Saka kung wala kang trabaho,
because
wala
we
kang
don't have
pambayad ng mga
insurance, we don't have
gastusin sa
health
ospital.
insurance, and we do not have the means to pay for
May mga
hospital
panahon
bills if
din
we
na
get infected.
nagba ng policy ang gobyerno na sa pagbili ng maskara o alcohol, kailangan mayroon kang alien card.
There was also a time that the
Insurance
Korean
card.
government
Wala naman kami
banned
wala naman kami nung mga iyon.
migrant workers
Kaya
who does not have alien card to
hindi
buy
rin kami
masks.
nakakabili.
So we are not able
Maraming
to buy
kahihiyan,
masks for
pero ang
ourselves.
aming organisasyon ay nagsagawa ng isang pagrarally para alisin ang policy na yon. At sa awa naman ng Diyos, inalis agad ng gobyerno.
So our organization protested
Marami pa
on
rin kaming
this
mga problema
policy of
kinaharap,
Korean
gaya ng
government.
psychological problem, discrimination, at
We have more
kawalang
problems
pamahalaan sa panahon ng
like
pandemic.
psychological problem,
Kasi may mga
negligence.
nung time na pandemic na yan, mismong embahada namin dito, nagsara sila.
In this time of pandemic,
Na
our very own embassy
sa halip na sila
closed their
hindi na sila
office
yung unang-unang tutulong ng
instead
kapwa
of
natin mga Pilipino.
leading support
Nakuha nilang
and
magsara sila ng
assistance for the
opisina.
Filipinos in Korea. They had the gall, the audacity to close their
Sa
office.
ganitong problema namin, madalas din kami nagsasama-sama kahit na binabawal. Siyempre, mahirap kasi yung ganitong nasa ibang
Even with the
bansa.
social distancing rules,
Sino-sino ba yung
we
magtutulungan
can't
kundi
help
yung mga
but
Pilipino
gather
nandito.
to be able to help each other, because who else
Humihiling
will
kami
help
ng
each other but
gumawa
us
kami ng
ourselves?
magandang sulat para sa ating embahada dito sa Korea
So we wrote
sa
a letter to
pamumuno
the
ng
Philippine
ating
Embassy in
pananampalataya.
Korea,
At
led by
nagbigay
our
kami ng libreng
alliance,
maskara at alcohol, mga sanitizer.
and that
Nagkaroon
resulted
naman sila
in a
ng
victory
special force na
because they
pagbili
provided
ng maskara nga
free masks
sa mga Pilipino
to
at isa din kami
Filipinos.
sa mga nakatanggap ng mga iyon kasi nga mahirap at wala kaming card na kailangan sa pagbili ng mga iyon.
Especially that we do not have the card to be able to buy the mask. It's a very big help
Sa katunayan,
after we
meron
uh,
kaming meron
after we
kaming
wrote the
meron
letter.
kaming ginagawang campaign gaya nitong 1 billion rising.
We also have
Hindi
campaigns
namin
like
gaanong
the 1 billion
ma-focus
rising,
kasi dahil nga sa pandemic, bawal-bawal na magsama-sama dito. Nagkaroon pa ng
but because of the
tinatawag na
pandemic
dapat sa mga
and the social
malaki-laki
distancing
Pilipino dito
rules
sa Korea
that is not more than
at
4, we cannot focus.
kapag kay nakita ng walang mask, meron ditong penalty. Hindi
The
basta
policy is
basta-basta
very
lang
strict.
mamimili dito.
If you
Talagang
are seen not wearing a
sundin ng
mask,
mga
you will be
patakaran ng mga
fined.
Koreans. Ayun lang po.
That's
Maraming
all.
salamat.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you so much, Jenny Oliver, from a migrant worker in South Korea, for sharing your story. Um, Later on, we will. There are questions now for Jenny Oliver, and please, may I remind everyone to key in your questions, any questions, comments, suggestions for each speaker. You can message here in our chat box and comment in comment section on Facebook. Okay, so our next speaker is Fajar Ganas from Ganas community in Taiwan. Fajar is an Indonesian migrant worker, and she has been working as a caregiver in Taiwan since 2012. Previously, she also worked as a domestic worker in Brunei for 2 years. In her first employment, she was denied rest day and worked for very long hours. She witnessed the similar condition was also experienced by many of her fellow migrants. Therefore, she was motivated to organize and form Association of Migrant Workers in Solidarity, or GANAS, community in Taiwan, to educate and advocate for migrants' rights. Friends, let us welcome Fajar, and she will speak in Bahasa Indonesia. For Bahasa Indonesia, please go to Japanese channel for interpretation. You can start now, Fajar.
Ya, oke. Selamat malam untuk
Good evening.
yang saat ini baik berada di Taiwan, Indonesia, ataupun di berbagai negara lain. Sebelum masa pandemi,
Before the pandemic,
banyak yang belum tahu
for
bahwa
people who
di
don't know,
Taiwan,
in Taiwan,
dari sektor pekerja domestik ataupun
from
pekerja sektor lain
domestic worker or other sector
berbeda dengan
is
pekerja
different
migran
with
dari
migrant worker from other country. And from this
pekerja
now,
domestik di Taiwan,
domestic worker in Taiwan
total
in total is 249, 449
dominasi
dominated by migrant worker from Indonesia.
Kemudian untuk
And
sektor domestik itu sendiri
for
juga
the domestic
beberapa
itself
bagian
sector,
yaitu
there's
pembantu
some
kemudian
shift
perawat rumah
that is
tangga
from
dan
nursing
asisten
house,
rumah tangga. Dari jumlah yang
house
besar
nurse,
itu
and also
diduduki
assistant
oleh
of
pekerja rumah
house.
tangga yang di sini bisa sebagai perawat pasien ataupun juga
which is dominated by nurse in the household. But in the reality, until now, domestic worker in Taiwan doesn't have any legality. And before the pandemic, for all migrant worker in Taiwan, in their contract duration, so they have to pay for the agency fee for long of their contract term. For the first year is 1,800 NT dollar, and for the third year is $1,500. And during the pandemic, the burden is getting heavier. At this time, the regulation of the government is distribution control of mass by the government of Taiwan. So we have so limited mass distribution. Because of this, friends who are in Taiwan, they are have initiative collecting donation for mass. And because of that problem, there's a lot of problem happen in the field. That is the borrowing of insurance card. So the employee borrow the masker, the card in to take the mask that is actually the for the migrant worker. At the time, there's a lot of problem happening. So maybe that's because of the start of the pandemic, and because of there's also quarantine for the foreigner, and also there were also health protocol, super tight health protocol. And the migrant worker is cannot go out from the house. And also the migrant worker is also cannot going out from the shelter. But we are still able to communicate with the outside world. And they blame us for causing the infections of the virus. And the PCR test is another problem for the migrant worker because the price is also high. That is 6,000 to 9,000 NT dollar. And this is also not only be a problem of because of the price, but also become uh, an opportunity for illegal fees. And also, Taiwan closed the migrant worker from Indonesia from December until now. There's also because of a lot of the newcomer from Indonesia is positive COVID, and because of that, Taiwan is closing, accepting migrant worker from Indonesia. And the work condition. The work condition is we don't have any legality that protect the migrant domestic worker in Taiwan. So we don't have any legal off day or standard salary for the migrant domestic worker. And there's also no access to insurance. So when we do have accident in work, we cannot get the health care. And because of there's no regulation on day off, so there's no national vacation that we have. So the day off is only is by agreed by the employee. And there's also no compensation for any loss that is faced by the migrant domestic worker. Because of there's no break time, and also there's no clear job description. This is really giving a hard time for the migrant. And also we cannot change employee easily. Only if our salary did not pay or our employer is doing violence to us, we can change our employer. But if it only the problem of long working hours, we cannot use the reason to change our employer. The challenging in the pandemic, amidst pandemic, is the negative stigma for Indonesian migrant worker as virus carrier.
Dan pada saat itu menimbulkan permasalahan yang luar biasa sehingga pemerintah sempat mengadakan amnesti untuk
the Taiwan have amnesty to give amnesty to send home migrant worker with no document or finished contract. The policy give psychology impact really deep for us.
Di mana tempat-tempat tersebut adalah menjadi tujuan utama bagi pekerja migran Indonesia untuk beristirahat, dikarenakan kita tahu tidak ada tempat khusus ataupun yang dijadikan pusat untuk pekerja migran beristirahat di masa hari liburnya. Kemudian
there's no shelter for migrant
Taiwan karena kebijakan pembebasan biaya penempatan pun memberikan dampak
for break.
yang ada di Taiwan. Ya, karena kita tahu sebenarnya
Because we know Taiwan is closed because of Indonesian migrant worker coming. So there's the dramatizing or blaming the Indonesian migrant worker causing carrying the virus, and the stigma causing friends in Taiwan scared to change the employer, and they are also keep silent of violence or abuse that they are faced. And if they want to go home to Indonesia, they have to face some stages like quarantine in Taiwan and also in Indonesia. With the time is quite long.
Bukan dari segi biaya, tetapi juga ada kekhawatiran tersendiri karena pada saat ini di Indonesia untuk COVID juga belum bisa diatasi secara maksimal. Lanjut. Screen-nya.
Hajar, is that all?
Okay. Perjuangan migran di pandemi, ya.
You only
The
have
migrant
2 minutes
struggle amidst the pandemic. Together with local worker, we are doing activity with any other organization. We are doing mass donation for migrant worker. although from our government is also send a donation, but it's not enough. Together with a local NGO, we are continuing campaign on migrant worker in Taiwan to be included in the worker law. And we're also doing advocacy on migrant worker cases, affiliation also with local NGO. Because the Indonesian government is also have limitation in doing intervention with the law in Taiwan. And we're also doing education with migrant worker, so they are understand on their rights while working in Taiwan. And for now, we are also want to erase the contract through agency or broker, because through the broker or the agency, there's a lot of problems that every month we have to pay for the service. And even there's no service that gives to us by the agency. Because of the agency is causing problems to the migrant. And also, we also want to, the domestic worker in Taiwan is also have regulation and their own law, maybe included into the worker or labor law in Taiwan. And the last is we also want to all parties, especially Indonesian government, for free PCR test fees for migrant worker. Thank you. Our explanation on situation in Taiwan. Good evening.
Terima kasih, Fajar, from Ganas
Okay,
community
welcome.
in Taiwan. And also, thank you for, thank you, Dewey, Amelia, for interpreting. If you have questions, please send your questions in our chat box, and also in the comment section and on Facebook Live. Um, Also, please feel free to state your comments or suggestions on how to address these challenges, and how we can strengthen solidarity with one another, especially during this time of pandemic. So we have I will read some of the comments or in our chat box. And also, may I remind everyone to stay with us until the end of the program, because we will be having our group photo later. I have a question here. This is for Jenny Oliver in South Korea. We have heard that the Korean government was giving financial aid to its people. Are migrants included, or is it just the same way with the way here in Hong Kong, where migrants are not included in any financial aid from the government? And how did the Philippine consulate responded to the uh, problems that the Filipino workers are facing in South Korea? Jenny?
Dito po sa Korea, ang mga Korean citizen lang yung may mga benefits na nakukuha, mga financial, mga
Sorry, we are not hearing.
Hold on a second. Paul, can you please move to English?
Oh, okay, hello.
Thanks.
Sorry.
mga marriage migrant
I can't hear Jen.
Jenny?
yes,
Can you speak louder, please? Thank you.
Dito po sa Korea, mga marriage migrant lang po yung nakakakuha ng mga benefits like sa financial.
I can't hear.
Tapos basta lahat ng benefits na nakukuha ng Koreans, sila lang yung meron. Ang ating embahada naman po ay tumugon. Tumugon naman po sila sa
So the Philippine consulate did respond by providing sanitizer, hand sanitizer, masks.
Thank you, Jenny. Jenny was saying it's only the Korean citizens who got the financial aid from the Korean government. Is that right?
Opo, yung mga mga marriage migrant.
Marriage migrants.
Mga Pilipino na may asawang Korean.
Okay. So there is a follow-up.
Kasi po kami, ang mga kami rito yung undocumented.
So I think the question, you answered the question already, the second question, because there's a follow-up question here. Is there financial assistance given to the undocumented migrants as well? So,
Wala po.
So there isn't.
Okay.
So,
Wala.
there's no financial assistance to undocumented.
Okay. And she was saying that the Philippine consulate has only given sanitizers and masks. Okay. So there is another question for you also. It's from Ren Kabar Bumi. Any response from the consulate in Korea after sending the letter?
Meron po, nasagot ko na po yan kanina na after nung magpadala kami ng letter.
After we gave a letter to the consulate, and they did respond with sanitizers and masks. We wrote them to complain because we didn't have work, and it was difficult for us to buy them because you need the card to be able to purchase these items.
Thank you, Jenny. We have another question. This is for Mai Mai. Mai Mai, are you there?
Yes,
Okay.
we are here.
Okay, this question is for you. We know it is very hard to gather right now physically when everyone is affected. How did you manage to get the resources to somehow create a shelter for migrants in Thailand who lose their job?
Can you say again?
Please. The question is, we know it is very hard to gather right now physically when everyone is affected. How did you manage to get the resources to somehow create a shelter? I think she's talking about like financial resource to build a shelter.
Okay. Chunburi shada သူတို့အလုပ်တာလို့ဟုတ်တယ်ပြီးတော့မှဟိုပါလဲ resource ကငါတို့ကအမျိုးသမီးဆွေးနွေးပွဲအများအားလုပ်တယ်လေ women exchange meeting တွေရှိတယ်ဆိုတော့ women exchange area အသီးသီးတွေနဲ့သူတို့ပြောလာတယ်နောက်တော့မှအဲ့ဒီ Chunburi ရ shelter ကြတော့လဲ
Are you still there, Mai Mai? Okay.
Can you hear us?
Yep. Sorry, we are in the field. We come outreach.
Please continue.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hima is talking about the resource. Resource is normally Mama is organizing women exchange for the migrant worker in different area. Like she explained that we have at least 18 area in Thailand already for the migrant women. This is the source. We have a woman leader in different area. And the second thing in Chunburi, the reason that they could open the shelter is that at that time, a lot of factories shut down. and a lot of migrant women, including migrant worker, they become jobless. But in meanwhile, before that, they also get a little bit of compensation. So they come together and they collect some money from each other, like monthly, 200 baht per each, and then they trying to rent an apartment. Especially, they're trying to open a shelter for the women, especially migrant women who are facing a domestic violence.
Okay, thank you, Mai,
Yes.
for answering the question. And there's another question here. It's from Bram Press.
To Bram,
Uh,
right?
yeah, I think every speaker can answer this one. It's for
Okay.
everybody.
Bram, are you ready?
What have migrant women been doing to overcome mental health issues like anxiety and depression? I think you can start. Please start. I think okay, we will start with Mai.
Again, please.
The question is from Bram Press. It's for everyone. What have migrant women been doing to overcome mental health issues like anxiety and depression?
Mental health issue là chúng ta women ấy mà well-being share.
So we have sorry. In the Women
Alright.
Exchange meetings, we have facilitator to come to facilitate about the well-being.
Okay.
Yeah, well-being here, we also including how to take a rest in 2 or 3 minutes, like take a deep breath and take care of ourselves, talk to our body, our mind, our feeling, and also Women Exchange is a special place or space for the migrant women to talk about their health, well-being. Maybe sometime we talk about how to take care of ourselves when we have a period, before we have a period, during period, after period, every single thing that we talk about. And we think that is a kind of well-being and counseling.
Counseling.
So, and women each other, they also give counsel to each other, and they find a job and they support each other. Like we said, we have a peer assistant system in different area, in Women Exchange area.
And another thing, MAP runs 2 radio program stations in Chiang Mai and Mae. So women, when they have stress, so they asking to open the music, the song, and then they encourage each other.
Oh, that's great. Okay. So we want to hear from Mike. Mike from Thai Regional Alliance. Because she was talking about um, recreation during her presentation. The leisure programs that they are doing right now from the time pandemic came to Hong Kong. Mike, do you want to speak in Thai or Chinese?
I can speak English. You have. I can speak English now.
Okay, Mike, please go ahead.
Okay. We have discussed amongst migrant domestic workers. That's firstly, we need to help, save, and have to know small our life. We have to strong more. We have to help each other. No expectation from the government. We have to save, and we have to be part of organization, and we from the specific group for working about COVID-19.
Yeah. Thank you, Mike. Jenny, we want to hear from you in South Korea. Next to Jenny, maybe we can hear Fajar as well. Fajar, next to Jenny. So the question is, about how did you overcome, what have migrant women been doing to overcome mental health issues like anxiety and depression?
Hindi. Ay, may ano lang ako, may nakalimutan ako sabihin.
I forgot to say something earlier
Tungkol dun sa financial assistance na galing sa government.
about the financial assistance coming from the Philippine government.
Mga ilang
Some,
Filipino, yung
but very few Filipinos receive
employment permit system dito. May mga
some financial assistance among those who have employment permit system. They got $200.
yun lang po.
$200 ayuda from the Philippine consulate.
Are they still giving ayuda now? Or did it stop last 2020? Are they still giving ayuda or the financial aid from the Philippine government?
Tapos na po, minsan lang yun, minsan lang.
It was just
Oh.
once. They only gave the one time,
One
and
time.
only very few, those with EPS, employment
Okay.
permits, only a few of them received ayuda.
Okay. So, yeah. So, follow-up question, Ate Jenny. What have you been doing to overcome the mental health issues, depression? Because there are so many undocumented migrants in South Korea. So, how did you cope up with this kind of situation? So many lost their jobs.
Life goes on. kahit na mahigpit.
So life goes on, even if the conditions are very restrictive, we still go out. Of course, we cannot go out in big numbers because that's strictly prohibited. But of course, fellow Filipinos help one another here in South Korea.
Okay, thank you, Jenny, and thank you, Paul, for interpreting. Yes, ayuda, it means financial aid. Ayuda is a Tagalog word. I'm sorry, it's a Tagalog word, and it means aid from the government. Okay, so we will go to Fajar from Ghana's community in Taiwan.
Yes.
Tentunya kita tetap berpikir positif bahwa
Of course, we're still think positive that this pandemic will pass through, and also following activities, positive activities, probably online. One of them is online sharing experience with friends from other countries. So we're not too stressed to think about the COVID in our countries. That also stressful to our thought, that we are also know that the problems in our country is also has not been yet solved. So yes, it's also burden to our mental, because we are also thinking about our children in our home country. And also by doing communication with our friends on problems outside there, at least we can understand that we are not facing this alone. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Fajar. True. It's true. Communication is very important nowadays, especially when we're not allowed to go outside. So just check up your friends. How are they now? How are they coping? And yeah, that's true. So I saw Hilda. Hilda from Taiwan raised her hand. Do you want to say something, Hilda?
Sorry, no.
Okay, so I have one question here. This is for my my of uh she's she said there's a law there in Thailand that after they're only given 15 days. So it's like the 2 week rule in Hong Kong. When you are terminated, you only have you're only given 2 weeks, to find another employer. So it says here 15 day, and then what happened after? So if they cannot find another job, so what happened? Are they going to be repatriated back to the country? My, are you there?
Yes. သူတို့အနေနဲ့ပွဲစားတွေနဲ့ကတော့အလုပ်သမားကိုရအောင်တော့ဖြစ်တဲ့နည်းနဲ့တော့သူတို့ရှာကြတယ်ပေါ့နော်
For our migrant worker in Thailand, they have to find a way to have a new employer within the day that time policy limited. They have to find a way. Mean if they cannot find themselves, they have to hire a broker company or broker anyway. They have to find the way out. They cannot be become illegal because it will cause many problems. Follow like the legal document process and find a new job, find an employer. So they have to find within the day that
ဆို
limited.
တော့တချို့ကျတော့လေအငှားတစ်ထင်းနဲ့ခဏနေကြတယ်ပေါ့အရေးဟိုပါ
Or if they cannot find among the day that they give the permit, they have to find someone to be their higher employer, higher employee. Yeah, yes,
temporary နော်
temporarily. Like maybe
broker
they
တွေက
are,
ရှာပေးတယ်
again, they have to find through broker.
Thank you, my.
ခုနကဟာနည်းနည်း add ချင်သေးတယ်လို့
Oh,
အမျိုးသမီးတွေလေ sorry
yeah,
yes.
my want to add some more
Okay, go on.
information for the woman exchange.
ဟိုဟာလေအမျိုးသမီး
Okay,
တွေကို
my.
ခုနကတော့ overcome ဘယ်လိုဖြစ်လာလဲဆိုတော့သူတို့စိတ်ပိုင်းဆိုင်ရာခြေဖြတ်ဖို့အမျိုးသမီးဆွေးနွေးပွဲမှာငါတို့ကပကံစီရလေးတွေတင်ပေးတယ်သူတို့လက်မှုလေးတွေတင်ပေးတယ်ပြီးတော့မှအဲ့ဒါဆိုသူတို့ရဲ့ဟိုပါပေါ့ income အနေနဲ့လည်းသူတို့ရလာတယ်နောက်တစ်ခုကကျတော့ဒီဟိုပါပေါ့တိုင်းစီးနဲ့လည်းသူတို့ဒီကျန်းမာရေးနဲ့ပတ်သက်တဲ့နည်းလမ်းလေးတွေတင်ပြီးတော့သူတို့မှလည်းစိတ်ဖြေတတ်တဲ့ရလာတယ်တချို့ဆိုအဲ့ဒီချူပရီယာ center ဆိုရင်သူတို့ center အတွက်အိမ်ငါးခကိုအဲ့ဒီပကံစီတွေနဲ့အမျိုးသမီးတွေလှုပ်ပြီးတော့မှ
For additional in women exchange activity, we also have activity solidarity like making washing liquid together. Like we bind the material and we work it out together. And sometimes we teach them the handicraft or sometimes even traditional medical herb. In Chamboli Center, one of their income is also come from making dishwashing liquid. And they make it and they sell it and then they can make a fundraising. So this is also another way that they can overcome the challenge.
Thank you, sisters from Myanmar. I will just read one last question. No, one last comment here in our chat box. Many become undocumented or hired under fake employer like an agent. Many become daily workers without an employer. Okay. So there's another follow-up question. Where do they stay, Bram? So okay. Bram? On their own. Okay, they stay on their own. So friends, if there are more questions, we will just gather them and give to our speakers to respond to. The responses we will post on the comment section on Facebook page of International Migrants Alliance. Open forum, and may we call on Kame of Asia Pacific Forum on Women, Law and Development for the closing message. Kame. Are you there?
Yeah, hello, Ria. Thank you, and good evening, everyone. I'm Kami. Thank you so much for having me in this discussion today. It is always amazing to hear the story from our migrant sisters and brothers, especially on how you overcome all the challenges and continue to organize and fight for the migrant rights collectively. From all this sharing just now, the experience may seem a little bit different, but it actually have lots of commonality. It is very clear to show that in all different stages of migration, from pre-departure, transit, arrive, the destination countries, or even return to our home countries, in all these different stages of migration, exploitation and oppression is just happen everywhere in different forms. Like just now, my share, the migrant factory women workers in Thailand are the first one to lose their job since the pandemic outbreak. They lost the jobs without any income and fall into the debt cycle without any choice. And many migrant workers just came legally to work, but turn out become undocumented because of the strict immigration policy and without the freedom to change the employment. And many of us, many migrants separate with our family, work overseas to expect a better life. But like Mike just now shared that migrant domestic workers in Hong Kong, they turn out work up to 14 hours or even more a day, not able to enjoy the rest day based on the recommendations from the Hong Kong government. Very terrible accommodation without providing proper protection equipment in this very critical time. Or like Jennifer Oliver just said, Filipino workers in South Korea face the financial problem, or after lost their job, they just cannot afford the most basic needs in the countries and have no money to send back. And or like Fajar also share with us, the migrant care workers in Taiwan need to pay huge amounts of agency fee and all this illegal fee by the recruitment agency. But the agency didn't offer any services and protections. Very often, and they control and harass the workers, and workers do not able to get the mask. Just now share, even need to share the insurance card to get the mask only. But very ironically, they are being discriminated and blamed as the virus carrier by the local or the other peoples. So right now, it's already like 1 year after the pandemic outbreak. Governments from different countries have all sorts of different kind of recovery plan. But the thing is, we need to think about, did all this plan really include or reflect the needs of migrants or the minorities or the marginalized group? The answer from our speaker just now have shared is obviously no. Very often, the migrants are being excluded from the recovery plan, the welfare package, or any resources. And even some very basic fundamental rights like the mask check, mask test, or vaccinations or healthcare, like Jenny said, migrant workers very afraid of being infected, but because they are not being covered by any healthcare and social security system in the countries. So what we are facing right now here is not just about the migrant issues or policy. If we are talking about migrants face higher risk of infections from COVID-19 virus because of the very cramped or poor living conditions of the workers' dormitories, is actually also about the housing policy. It's the issues of land justice, the housing justice. If we said the migrants very often being excluded from the vaccinations or other service provision, it is related to the exclusive or very unfair welfare and public health policy. So it's all about the whole development framework or the development plan right now is very unfair, is full of injustice. So we need to counter this, right? So that's what we really need, is to have a stronger movement. That's why we all come here today together to share the realities, to get to know each other, and to explore what we can do and build together. So one thing I think we may need to further think about together is to how to connect all the efforts and dots together to create a stronger force by building movement across different sectors, across constituency, to build and expand our movement. people like migrants, workers, marriage migrants, LGBTs, indigenous people, urban poor, all workers, documented or undocumented, we all can come together, can join hands and create the solidarity power. So one very soon coming opportunity, we all know is the International Labor Day. I'm sure many of you are very busy, start preparing the May Day action. And APWLD also are going to organize an online protest. So for us, APWLD, the focus of May Day this year is about to stop gender-based violence in the world of work. It is so clear to show that the gender-based violence happen everywhere in all different sectors. Like the factory migrant workers we hear just now in Thailand face the continuous domestic violence, unsafe abortion and pregnancy. So at the same time, they are not able to access any protection or shelter due to their status. So we need all the solidarity support from all of us to gather the energy together. And I wish all of you can join us in this action to participate, to give speeches, to share your story, to show your demands, to push the government to ratify the Convention C-190 and other policy reform with gender and human rights perspective. So thank you everyone for all of you to participate today. And I hope to see you all in the coming actions. So thank you everyone.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much, Kami. And apologies, everyone. Kami Lau is a program officer of migration program of the Asia Pacific Forum on Women, Law and Development. APWLD is a feminist membership-driven network committed to women, human rights, and development justice through feminist movement and solidarity power across the region. Before she joined the APWD, she was the organizer secretary of the Hong Kong Confederation of Trade Unions, organized the migrant and local domestic workers in Hong Kong. And now we will call on Annie Listari of International Migrants Alliance. After Annie, we will have the group photo. Annie, are you there?
Yes. Thank you, Rhea. Thank you, all the speakers and Kamai for giving a very good summary on what has been discussed today. We already hear all the testimonies. This is actual stories. This is the real struggle of women migrants on the ground. And this story actually tell us that we are really carrying the brunt of all this crisis. During this pandemic that has been ongoing for 1 year, we are trying to give hope that this pandemic will go away. But we know by fact that even this year, the pandemic will remain with us even for this year. What the pandemic shows to us is that the ugly truth that the migrant workers, regardless where we come from, or where we are working, are actually really slaves for many countries. They do not consider us as workers, not even women, not even human. We are just excluded from all the type of protection that we deserve. But the question, despite all these realities, many of us are really torn apart between staying in the country where we are working now and continue to suffer very abusive and exploitative conditions, or to go home. But either of the choice is not really an option at this point. We cannot just go home to our home countries because our home countries cannot even provide decent jobs. Our government failed to even protect and give proper survival livelihood for their own people. That's the very reason why we are forced to work abroad. And then while we are working abroad, the only option for us to do is really to survive and continue to unite with our fellow migrants and defend what we have. We have to really continue, like what Jenny Oliver said, life must go on. And then that the only way to move forward is really to strengthen our unity. We know by the fact that in the past, migrants continue to suffer crisis after crisis. From 1997 Asian financial crisis to 2008 global crisis, and now is the pandemic crisis. But again, the migrants continue to be where we are, and we survive, and we believe that we can survive in this pandemic. But again, we learn from our lesson that no government will give their support to us unless we demand. And the only way to survive and pass through all this pandemic is really to strengthen our unity and solidarity with our fellow migrants and our supporters in the local and even international and regional. So friends, International Migrants Alliance is also going to organize global online rally on May 2 to gather all the voices of migrants across the world to learn from each other the struggle and the experience they endured during the pandemic. But beyond that, we also want to show to the world that we do not give up, that we continue to assert our rights, because we believe we are part of the people that should be recognized as a workers and as human. And then before the International Labor Day, we will also organize another webinar for Asia Pacific, which actually will be another sharing session for migrant workers in Asia in different sectors. But this time, it will not only be women, but also our male migrants. So we will announce to all of you when is the next webinar. Again, IMA is hoping that through this activity, we will learn from each other. We will also learn each other tips, and how we organize, like the question raised, how we are taking care of our mental health and avoid depression. Because we are organizers, we should be strong in this time of crisis. But to do that, we also have to develop organizational programs that address our mental health, because at this point, that is very, very crucial. We need our strength, our body, our mind, so we can serve others better. So thank you so much for your participation. Again, this event is very successful. We do not expect this big number. Today, we go beyond 75. And this was actually everyone really eager to be connected and learn from each other. And we are looking forward for your participation in the next webinar and also for the International Labor Day celebration. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Annie. That is really a very warm message from you for everyone. And everyone, friends, please stay where you are right now. And may I request everyone to open your camera and show your beautiful faces. Let's have a group photo. And take note that IMA will have the online rally on May 2. Okay? Okay, so our tech will
Chanting.
do the photo. Okay, so let's chant. The migrants united will never be defeated.
The migrants united will never be defeated.
The migrants
The
united
migrants.
will never be defeated.
The
Migrants united will never be defeated.
Long live international solidarity.
Long
Long
live
live
international solidarity.
Long live
solidarity.
international solidarity.
Long
Long
live
live
International
international
solidarity.
solidarity.
Can we say together?
Okay, again. Okay, there's a request there. We will say it together. We will try as much as we can. Okay? Long live
Long live
international
Long
solidarity.
live
Long live
international
Solidarity.
Thank you, everyone. And we look forward for future women migrant sharing. This is a very successful event, and we are very glad. And we will look forward to see you all the next migrant sharing we will have. Thank you, and have a great evening and a great weekend. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Happy weekend.
Bye.
Everyone stay safe.
Bye.
Stay safe.
See
See you in the next webinar.
I'm waving, you can't see. Bye, Bram. Bye.
Thank you so much, Coordination. We will talk to you again.
Thank you. Good to see you all. Wish you the same. Okay. Bye.
Thank you so much.
Night.
Thank you.
Hello to everyone.
They don't want to leave.
We don't want to leave.
They don't like to leave.
We're staying.
Okay, it's
Mauna ka,
done.
Daday.
Bye, everybody. We will close.
Thank you.
Bye, Hilda.
Bye.
They
Hi,
won't leave until
Roxy.
you close
See you.
it.
We
Take
will
care,
now close
everyone.
in 5, 4, 3,
Okay.
2, 1.
Take care, everybody.